I can. Yeah, I remember you said just find properties, and I just didn't want to get too carried away because I was looking at all the free stuff. I didn't, everything else is behind a paywall. So
Yeah.
far so good anyway. But what I did find was a student housing, 2 units, 5 bed, 3.5 bath each. So 2 units, 10 rooms. The asking is 1.15 million. Let's see. And then so I got he had pretty good T12s. He had he went back like 4 years, so that was interesting.
Okay.
But one interesting thing that I noted was he's even though he's selling the property, he's holding the mineral rights. So I'm not sure what's up with that. I don't know if that's becoming a common thing or if that's just his property. Anyway, so
what town is this located in, Travis?
Chapel Hill?
North Carolina?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes we'll come back to that, but basically sometimes people hold on to the ground rights, and that can be mineral rights and stuff like that, depending on what's around there. But that may be a little homework. So what did you find out? So you said a T12. I don't know if everybody on remembers what a T12 is. Would you like to remind us what a T12 is?
I sure can try. So it's the trailing 12 months
Right.
of all performance.
And that's
So income,
exactly right.
expenses. Yeah.
All right. So what did you find out?
All right.
This is
go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
All right. So let's see. The listed in the 2022 T12, and they were pretty consistent or in the same area back 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. So 83.5K. I got a little confused on some stuff because even though it's 2 units, 10 rooms, I did a little kind of searching on Rentometer, and it kind of looks like the going rates could be increased a little bit. So roughly 5K, but I held on to the 83.5K just to keep it simple. And he did list his actual income from the last full year of operations at 65K. So continuing through the math, so I subtracted 10% for vacancy, and that left us 83.5 with 8.35K total. I don't know if I did that wrong there. Let's see. So subtracting 8.35K from 83.5K. Anyway, 75K. Let's see. And then we're looking for net income. So net income is effective gross income times 45% to account for ballparking pretty accurate expenses. I know to be a little more conservative, you go with 50%, but we're going to go with 45% here. So that leaves us with 33K of net income. He did list, so from the OM part, the operating memorandum, he did list out, he broke out some pretty good expenses there. I didn't do anything with it, except he came up with a pretty good net income, 65K, which I thought was interesting. And I think that kind of ties into what I came up with as well. So the net operating income, so income minus expenses, leaves me with 65K. So
okay, now let me ask you there. So you had the effective gross at about 75,000, right?
yes.
Okay. So the effective gross, everybody, so we're going to do what the scheduled gross is. If everything was rented all year with no bad debt, no vacancies, it'd be about 88,800. Is that about right?
So the 88,800 was a Rentometer search. I would go with the one on the left, 83.5K, just to keep it in line with the T12 there.
And so that's what he reported, 83.5.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so then 10% of that is a vacancy factor. And so we subtract that from the 83.5 and we end up with 75,000. So now what is your expenses there?
So I followed your lead and I took the expenses to be 45% of income.
So 75% of the effective gross.
Is that right? 45%.
Okay, 45%. So 45% of 75,000, basically.
Yes. That's correct.
And that makes it, and so,
33.8K.
okay, so subtracting that from 70, so 75,000 minus 33,000, and we get to what?
Well, now I'm looking a little closer here, but I
41,333.
yeah, but if you look at the bottom line, if you follow his lead with the expenses that he listed, 75K minus 18K, that gives you the 65K that he was reporting. So I guess I
Okay.
got confused on, I think expenses weren't as high as 45%. I think because of the asset class being student housing. Does that make sense? Or
So
if it's-
here's what, so I don't really know all that much about student housing, but you've done perfectly up to here. So I see this a lot, that you have somebody who is either managing it themselves or they're doing some other things, and they report their expenses less. So if he's reporting the total expenses of about, what did you say, 18,000?
Yeah,
Okay, 18,000
that
is
makes sense.
about what, 30% of 75?
24%.
24%. Okay.
Yeah, his management fee was $3,300, so he must be doing it himself, or he paying somebody.
Yeah. So, and what I know about student housing is that basically for it to work, you not only have to have management, but you have to really have you are generally paying for the for some, if not all, of the expenses of the house. So you're paying electric, you may be paying trash and water, you are most usually paying for housekeeping. Otherwise, the students can just kind of kill your place because they don't keep them up, right? So it is, so what I don't do when I see something that's reporting and expenses of 24%, just from my own experience, I absolutely know I cannot run a property at 24% expenses.
Yeah,
There's too
right.
many other things that are going to include there. And so I would stick with our 45%
Yeah,
expenses. Now you
Mhm.
may drop it because it's only 2 units and you're renting the room, right? You might make a case for dropping it to 40% plus a 10% vacancy factor. But if you were to do the math again and take the 75,150 and subtract the 33,817, what
Yep.
do you get as an NOI?
41K.
All right. So James, is there a way is that something you can write in?
Actually, this is, oh yeah, okay, I can do it. What do you need me to do?
Just put it in a different color. Down there where under the NOI.
What did we come up with? 41 something?
Yeah, 41.2K, if you want to be precise. 41.2
Okay, I just wrote it out.
or
Okay.
41,200. Yeah, that's correct. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
All right. So that's what your NOI is. And if we were to use a 10 cap,
Right.
we could pay what?
412K for
All right.
that's
All
for
right.
he's talking 2 units, so that's where I got confused too, because I was like, that seems like a good price for 1 unit.
What
The
does?
412K, I guess. See what I'm saying? So he's saying 8K for 2 properties, but
He's saying 1.15 million for 2 properties, for 2 units.
yeah, and we're coming up with a 10% cap, 412K. So It seems
Okay,
weird.
so James, if you could write next to that. So that's what, so let's figure out what he's really offering this at. So right next to that at a 10K, right? 41. No, don't erase his.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so just out to the side someplace.
Travis, what you came up with, 412? 400
Yeah,
and,
yeah, 412K.
Okay. So let's come down there to a 7 cap and we'll see what the range is.
Yeah, and that puts us at 589,000.
Okay. Would you write that, James?
say it again, Travis.
589.
And that was for 7 cap or 8 cap?
That's 7
7.
cap. Uh-huh.
Okay. So for us to really figure out what he's actually asking for this, we know 2 numbers. And so what we don't know is what the cap rate he's asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the NOI is basically 41,200.
Yeah.
And for us to figure out what the cap rate, we're going to take that 41,200
Mhm.
and we're going to divide it by the asking price. So,
Right.
so James, can you somewhere below 41,200
That's
divided by,
weird.
41,200. Okay, hold on.
1.15 million, right?
yep, divided by what the asking price. And what
And
does
that
that
gives
equal?
35.8%.
So he's asking
No, that's-
a equals a 3 point what, Travis?
35. No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
3.5. 3.6. Yep.
okay. So he's asking a 3.6 cap rate.
Yeah, it's really low.
Yeah. So is this something that's going to work for us?
No.
No. So he may think he's because of the expenses that but even if we used his expenses, it doesn't really work. And
Right.
I frankly know that there's just no way you can run that a student housing or any other thing at 25% expenses. It just won't work. All right.
Yep.
So you did
Good learning
really
experience.
good. Really, really good. You did a really nice job. Thank you so much. All
Yeah.
right. So
It was fun.
what were your insights from this?
Well,
Any,
it was nice to dig in on something and actually apply what I've been learning.
how long did it take you to do this?
Insights. Yeah, well, so to be honest, I looked at 3 different properties and then I kind of settled on this one.
Okay.
This took me, I don't know, maybe an hour.
All right. So after not too bad for the first one at all. After you've done a couple, 3 of these, you can get this down to, 5 to 10 minutes realistically.
Right.
It may be a little bit different with the rentometer, but our goal in this is to just do a quick scan, right?
Okay.
So I
yeah.
know that you looked a little deeper
Good.
because you actually got the expenses he was reporting.
Mhm.
And that's really a good thing to do, to kind of start looking at that.
Mhm.
What I found in general over the years is that a lot of these deals just don't work because people are asking too much. And so I really don't do much delving down in this until I figure out something may work,
Yeah.
because it just takes too much time. What I
Yeah.
want to be able to do is scan a lot of deals fairly quickly, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm going to spend extra time, at least for me, I'm going to be sending an email back to the broker telling him where I am and why I am there and what else he had got. All right. So James, is Rob on? Did Rob come on?
I don't know. Hey, Travis, I saved this and sent it back to you, so you have.
I saw that. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right. Any questions you have, Travis?
No, I'm good. It's already taken up so much time.
No,
good,
no,
though.
that's exactly what we wanted to do.
Oh,
Okay, I
Rob's not
can't.
on.
Okay. All right. Well, then was there anybody else who happened to do one of these, even though we didn't ask you to do that? But was there anybody else who took a stab at one of these? Can we go back to the main? I can't see other people, James, who
Oh,
are
sure.
on here.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
all right.
Let me
Who's-
hold on. let me
Who's
put on-
talking?
My name is Marissa.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I am doing good.
I have a question with the sniff test. I think I've probably asked this question to James before in the past. The sniff test is a quick analysis for you to figure out if the property that you are analyzing is something that you want to pursue. And in your teachings, I think you said that you should buy a property at an 8% cap rate. My question to you is, would you recommend buying a property that's maybe not an 8 cap when you're buying it, but after you maybe fix it up in another year, it might turn into an 8 cap?
If I can get it to an 8 cap, that's a really good question. By the end of year 1, I will
Okay.
consider it, but it has to be an easy path. It
Okay.
has to be, so that means that I don't have to do a whole lot to get there.
Okay.
Because
Like,
it's,
sorry.
if I have to do lots of work or put lots of money into it to get to an 8 cap, then it probably isn't going to work.
Okay. The other question to add to that is, with the industry, or just what do you call it? Interest rates the way that they are now, is 8 cap even feasible, or should we be looking at something else determined upon the market?
So I'm not sure, I'm exactly sure what you're asking, but
Is the 8% cap rate, is that always standard? Should that always be the standard for a multifamily, or should you adjust the 8 cap as the market changes?
so I'm certainly going to be changing the cap rate I'm looking at as the market changes. So so what I'm really looking for in kind of general terms
Mhm.
is that I have a 1.5% to 2% spread between what the interest rate is and what I can buy it at. So right now, when Travis's deal there, our interest rates now for commercial are somewhere, depending on what your balance sheet looks like, somewhere around, in the range of 6 to 6.5, 5.5 to 6.5, that range, right?
Okay.
So if I'm using a 6%, let's just say I can find a mortgage for 6%.
Mhm.
Then if I have a 1.5 to 2% spread on the interest rate, then on the cost of my money, I'm sorry, not interest rate, on the cost of my money, then I'm looking at something around an 8 cap. It may be a 7.5 cap if I can get to an 8 cap.
You mean
but
you would purchase it at a 7.5 cap?
okay, if I can get to an 8 cap by the end of year 1.
Year in 1.
And so
Okay.
it is one of my trying to get to an 8 cap by the end of year 1 at a minimum means, and this is going back to another kind of factor. Most of the time, people have investors, right? You're not buying this with your own money, just your own money. You have investors coming in.
Mhm.
Most investors want at least an 8% return on their money.
Okay.
And so if you can't get to an 8 cap by the end of year 1, then you are in a position where you are going to be typically owing those investors more than an 8 cap in year 2, because it's a preferred return most of the time.
Okay.
And so it's not just the spread on my cost of money. It is also me trying to say, if I'm going to do all this work, I'd really like to see a little money come into my pocket too, right?
Mhm.
And if I can't buy it at something where where I can get to an 8 cap or better by the end of year 1, then most of the time I know I'm really not going to have any money to put in my pocket from that cash flow, because I'm going to
Okay.
have to get better returns than that. So I'm coming back to the sniff test.
Mhm.
My first analysis, I'm just looking to see if there's any way this deals make sense. And so if I'm within 10%, 10 to 20% of what I think I can buy it at,
Mhm.
I will pursue the deal a little bit further. So if somebody is asking that let's just use that $1 million, right?
Mhm.
If they're asking $1 million and I can come in at where I can offer is at 850,000,
Mhm.
that's 85% of what they're asking. I'm at about 85% of what they're asking. That's
Mhm.
close enough for me to look a little bit further, right?
Okay.
So if on the other hand, the most I can offer is 600,000, that's 60% of $1 million. That's too much of a spread. That seller is not going to come down 40% or 20% or 30%.
Okay.
Sellers are going to typically come down 10, maybe 15%, right?
Okay.
Because they're typically listing it at a little more than they think they can get for it.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Other questions?
When we start putting the boxes around,
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear the question.
I didn't either. If you're muted, just go ahead and unmute.
no, I'm sorry, somebody was talking to me and it wasn't a question.
Oh,
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Hey, is that Sam? And Yan, thank you for coming back. Eric is here. Aaron is here.
I had a quick question.
Sure, Nathan.
This is referring back to the example that we were just going over.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering when we were speaking, so I came in late and I missed out on the part for the expenses. And I took a screenshot of it and I was just going through it. And I was wondering, I see that, James, are you able to pull up the,
yep, doing it right now. Hold on.
okay.
Can you see it?
Yes, okay, so the section where it says minus expenses.
Uh-huh.
So I see there the EGI times the the percentage, I guess that's the estimated cost for expenses.
You mean the 45%?
45. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is a good initial kind of number to use. So that doesn't include your vacancy factor. So some properties you can run at less, sometimes properties are going to be more, but that's a pretty good average. And I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm generally running on most properties on expenses that is going to include vacancy
Mhm.
and some money for for contingencies that are going to be my buffer. Around 45%, 45 to 50%, including vacancy factor. So if I'm including vacancy factor, my expenses are and vacancy is somewhere around 50 to 55%. If I'm just ballparking it. So what we're doing here is we're using a 10% vacancy factor
Mhm.
all the time. And if you don't have 10% vacancies, and that includes both economic and physical vacancy, then more power to you. But there's always some bad debt. There's always some turnover. So I use 10%. And then expenses are typically about 45% of the effective gross. So that's once I take that 10% off, my expenses are somewhere around 45% of that effective gross.
Mhm.
A lot of those expenses are fixed. I can't do anything about them. So I can't do anything about management fees most of the time. I can't do much about insurance, about taxes, about a lot of those other things. So a lot of my expenses are fixed in there. And so just after this many years, I pretty much know where I can run a property. And so I don't know that I have any better explanation than that, Nathan, is that I just pretty much understand that it's going to be, my expenses are going to be about 45% of my effective gross.
Got it. Okay. And sorry, just want to nail this in. So the fixed expenses, that is not taken into account of the 45%.
No, it does. It does. That 45% includes all expenses except my mortgage and the interest on my mortgage. So it is all expenses.
Okay.
So it's going to be my administrative expenses. It is going to be my my property manager. It's going to be my staff. It's going to be taxes. It's going to be insurance. It's going to be websites. It's going to be communications. It's going to be my software for running the property. You just kind of think about it. It's going to be my utilities, my water, my trash. It's all of those things together.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if it helps you, when you actually underwrite a deal, can you see this here?
Yes.
So each one of these tabs is different, right? But for most expenses, they're kind of listed up here. So here you would put what this person is telling you, and here you would put what you think you could actually run it for. But stuff like payroll, like just what you was talking about, management fees, admin, marketing, insurance, gas and electric, water, etc. But that's kind of a general overview of the expenses that you would have to include for any property, whether it be a single family house or a multifamily.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So that would all these expenses will be included. But as generating a soft offer, you want to stick around that 45%.
You want to use that 45% to figure out what your net operating income is likely to be.
Okay.
So as you saw in the example that Travis was giving, they claimed the expenses about 24%. And we know now that we can't run a property at 24% expenses. We're going to use 45%. So that net operating income now represents what the value of the property is. So the capitalization rate upon which a lot of owners are going to try and use to sell the property is going to be a percent. It's going to be in a relationship to the net operating income, not to the gross. And so if I, and if we remember, we talked about the value of the property, the capitalization rate is what you would pay if you bought a property for cash and you didn't have any closing costs, right? If you just bought the property for cash and had no mortgage and no interest and no closing costs, that property, the capitalization rate reflects the percent or the return on your money. So if I buy something at an 8 capitalization rate, that means that I have an 8% return on my money. This one was at about a 3.6 cap rate. And so that would mean if I bought it cash, that I would have about a 3.6% return on my money. But my interest rates right now are 6 to 6.5%. So it really doesn't make any sense.
Can I interject something on that thought right there?
You betcha.
So I was actually, so this is, I'm kind of trying to hammer this down myself. So if you take the 1.15 million and you assume a loan to value of 75%.
Yep.
Yeah, 75%. And like you said, I assumed a 6.5% interest rate. Divide that by 12, and then you get your monthly payments for the debt service. So we agreed that we had roughly 8K there, I think, and that put me so that the debt service would be $4,600 a month. Which is a
Okay.
really bad deal right there. I just wanted to make that observation.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Did that make sense, Nathan, what Travis just said?
I'm still registering it. So, to be frank, not quite. I'm not too familiar with, financing a property with the 75% loan to value.
Okay. Travis took this one step further. At this point, on this sniff test, I'm not worried about loan to value or how much I have to put down. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way that this deal might work. It's a 10-minute brief assessment, right? So that you are just trying to see if what you think you can offer so you can run this property at a profit is in the ballpark of what the seller is asking for the property. And he's asking 1.125 million for a 2-house or 2-apartment property that is student housing, and he's renting each of those rooms, each house or each place, to 5 different students. So it is still a 2-bedroom or a 2-house property, 2-unit property. And so he's asking over $500,000 for each unit. And what we just went through there is trying to see if it makes any fiscal sense for us to be able to buy it there. So ask again if you're still not clear what we're doing here.
I'm on board.
Okay.
Thank you.
You betcha. Other questions? All right, well, if I don't have any other questions, then we will kind of let it go there. And next week, I'm trying to get back here to my little thing here. Next week, we are going to be, it's March 7th, right?
Mhm.
We're going to be talking about providing some tips for how you can decrease resident turnover in some of your rentals. So we talked last in one of our other things that turnover is probably your single biggest controllable expense. And so you really, one of the ways you maximize your NOI is to decrease turnover. And so that's what we're going to talk about next week. So I really, really appreciate you coming. And if anybody has any topics, if you need to go, please hang up. But I'd like to get some feedback about some other topics you would like us to talk about. So if anybody has any ideas, I'd appreciate it.
And if you don't have one right now, I put my email address in the
well,
chat. You can just email it
Yeah,
to
we can
me.
do it in email.
All right, that works. I don't want to take up your time, but I really would appreciate your feedback, please, so we can try and meet your needs. All right, you guys, thank you for hanging out and good to see you. And we'll try and talk to you next week. Thank you for your time.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. Have a good week.